Let's move ahead and talk about the injury report. Stephania here for week 4, getting everybody ready for waiver wire. Derek Carr went down with a sprained right AC joint. Sounds like he's going to be week to week. What else do we know about him?
So if you were watching the game, this was one of the classic quarterback shoulder injury mechanisms. Quarterback gets driven into the turf. One of 3 things happens. It's either a concussion, or it's an AC sprain, or it's a clavicle fracture. So AC joint is the point of the shoulder. You have ligaments there. It's also what you hear called a separated shoulder if there's enough ligament damage, because those 2 bones will move apart. And so if you hear the casual term separated shoulder, it's sort of interchangeable. It looked bad when it happened. We heard reports of Derek Carr even going to the hospital for further evaluation. And then later, Dennis Allen says it ends up being not as severe as what they once thought. So a big sigh of relief for everyone, including Derek Carr, I'm sure. Still a very painful injury, and to his throwing shoulder. So it's not just a question of, is he at pain at rest? It's, can he go through the arc of motion and throw the ball? We know that Derek Carr likes to throw the ball downfield. That is really tough to do within a few days after this injury. He is being called week to week. Adam Schefter reporting it's unlikely that they plan on using him, that they'll probably go to Jameis Winston the first week, but he could be back as soon as the week after. This is very much a day-to-day evaluation. People wondering, are they a big risk for further injury by putting him back? This is not like the Joe Burrow situation. If you can play through it, you play through it. And I thought it was really interesting. Mike Triplett, our former colleague, who now is at NewOrleans.football, wrote a piece after they talked to Drew Brees, who had this same injury back in 2014. And so you love to hear from somebody who played the same position, who had the same injury. And he said, is one of the only times in his career that he literally did not practice until it was time to play in the game, because everything is about keeping that arm resting and not putting it through that strain of going through that arc of motion. Had an injection, was able to play. And I think his first game back, he put up like some ridiculous thing, like 5 touchdowns. I got the stats somewhere. It doesn't matter. He had a great game back. So that should be very encouraging for those who roster Derek Carr, that he should be able to come back and be himself. Might not be this week, might be until the week after, but if all goes well, should be fairly soon.
Field, I'm still starting Chris Olave without any hesitation, even if Jameis Winston is under center. The only conversation for me is Michael Thomas still a flex consideration for me? And
I feel pretty similar about the Saints offense with Jameis Winston as I did with Derek Carr. Like a nominal upgrade, of course, with Derek Carr. That was the reason why they made the pursuit of him, but doesn't really move the needle that dramatically for fantasy purposes.
The nice thing about Jameis is it's not like he's going to come in and all of a sudden they're going to limit the offense. He's going to throw the ball.
He will
throw the ball a bunch. And you know what? As a manager of the wide receivers, you don't care about the interceptions that Jameis potentially throws.
The person who it might impact the most is Alvin Kamara, as we saw in the past couple of years with Jameis as the starter. They did not lean nearly as much on Alvin Kamara as the pass catcher, which you'd love to see a whole lot more of that, especially with Derek Carr once he's back under center.
Absolutely. All right, Stephania, let's also talk about Mike Williams. Unfortunately, has gone to the IR. What can you tell us about him?
This, another one that makes you sad. In the third quarter, catching a pass went down. You saw his leg bobble.
Yeah.
And just had that feel, that classic feel of an ACL injury. Confirmed on Monday that Mike Williams tore his left ACL. Adam Schefter reporting that he's expected to be ready for training camp. This is often what we think when guys are injured early. If you're looking for a silver lining, it's that 9 to 12 month optimum return time following an ACL injury. And so that hits right about the time of the start of training camp. Also important to remember, until the athlete gets through surgery and we find out whether there were other structures involved or whether it was an isolated ACL tear, that can make a difference. And then everybody has their own recovery pathway. So you hope for a very smooth recovery for Mike Williams. And at least right now, there's optimism that he could be back when training camp begins. Tough for him because he's certainly dealt with his share of injuries and so talented when he's on the field.
Super talented. Mike Williams, 28, turning 29 years old. So I would love to be able to see Mike Williams back and look good next year. We're going to talk about the rest of this offense field once we get to the waiver wire section, because with Mike Williams out, that's where we're going to go with one of those wide receivers. Stephania, a couple more injuries here. Thursday Night Football, short week. The Detroit Lions and Green Bay Packers both have a couple of guys. Just talk to us about this game.
Yeah, we don't like Thursday Night Football when you have key fantasy players who are questionable coming in, and that's what we're dealing with both sides of the ball. David Montgomery for the Lions has a thigh contusion that kept him out last week. Now, a lot of these teams will just do projected practice reports, and so Monday was an estimated practice report, both for the Lions and for the Packers. David Montgomery listed as limited. Now, he said that he felt like he'd be able to play, and he would want to be out there if he could be. But still, day to day, we'll see. I mean, it's a soft tissue injury, and Lions have to decide how comfortable they are with where he is. Tuesday, typically a bigger practice day for teams that play on Thursday, so stay tuned for that.
Yep.
On the other side, for the Packers, Christian Watson, Aaron Jones, everybody knows we've hamstring injury for both of them. And at the end of last week, it looked a little more promising for Christian Watson. I think we thought he'd be active, and then he was not. And so the conversation we had on Fantasy Football Now was, well, maybe with the Thursday game in mind, they're just being particularly conservative. Interestingly, Christian Watson listed as a non-participant in the estimated practice report for Monday. Now, what we don't know is because last week, Christian Watson had a scheduled off day. Was this a planned would-be off day had they really practiced? Don't know. But here's what we do know. Tuesday is the biggest practice day for the Packers coming into Thursday. So I think how they land Aaron Jones and Christian Watson on the report today will tell us a lot more. Everybody in Green Bay really just kind of shaking their heads, not sure what their status is going to be.
I'm not going to put you on the spot for this, Stephania. Not really for us to talk about. I really need Damian Woody here for this, but both of these teams are without a very impressive starting offensive lineman. The Lions have been playing without Taylor Decker, and the Packers have been playing without David Bakhtiari. It would be big for both of those running backs, Aaron Jones and David Montgomery, if they could get their entire offensive line back and feeling healthy. So something we'll keep watching as we get a little closer to Thursday night football. We got a couple of guys in the concussion protocol too, as well. Stephania, Jimmy G and Gus Edwards, both. Any updates on either of the guys?
Yeah, both of these are strange. Again, it's the reason why these are not identical. Jimmy Garoppolo, we saw, I mean, people have replayed. There was a helmet-to-helmet apparent contact he had with Minka Fitzpatrick in the second half, and people wondering if that was the event. Who is to know? But at the end of the game, he was being evaluated for concussion-like symptoms and then was placed in the concussion protocol. So again, criterion-based, not time-based. We wait and see. Gus Edwards, this one's a little more bizarre to me because he left the game to be evaluated for a concussion, did not return. Sounds like Gus Edwards wanted to come back into the game, but did not. Now on Monday, Coach John Harbaugh would only say that he was still being evaluated. So it was unclear to everyone whether Gus Edwards is technically in the concussion protocol or whether he's still going through some evaluation process.
Okay.
This matters a great deal because they are super, super thin at running back. The Ravens are, because Justice Hill is dealing with a toe injury, Keaton Mitchell, a shoulder injury on IR, and J.K. Dobbins we know is gone. So they're only running backs right now that are available to them are practice squad players Melvin Gordon, Kenyon Drake, and Owen Wright.
We're in week 4. We're in week 4 for the Ravens. They're starting Melvin Gordon and Kenyon Drake. I'm waiting for them to add Frank Gore to their roster.
And by the way, Melvin looked pretty good this past week. Shout out Melvin Gordon. Yeah. I will just say this. When Adam Schefter adds a player randomly in the War Room League, I immediately go and try to add that player in every league that I'm in. I know that I play in leagues with people that listen to this show. So I sort of regret saying this, but I'm trying to service the people, the larger audience.
After you went and added them in your leagues.
Well,
already.
no, waivers tonight.
That's
to add him yet.
I thought you
Mitchell
claimed him free.
Was added by Shefty recently. Keaton Mitchell,
yeah.
who is,
coming
as Stephania mentioned, coming off IR, but he has one more game he has to miss. But sounds like there was some buzz about Keaton Mitchell during the preseason. So if you have a flexible bench spot, maybe go and add yourself some Keaton Mitchell, and then don't thank me if it works out. Thank Shefty.
I would also, so just to put a bow on this situation with Gus Edwards, it's not clear if he is formally in a concussion protocol or if they were doing an extended evaluation to determine if he was cleared of any concussion symptoms, like in other words, that he never really had one and comes back. So we'll see. Tuesday, big day for this.
Big day. All right, we got a couple of quick IR reminders here. Deontay Johnson on IR. We're going to talk about some of the Pittsburgh pass catchers in the waiver wire segment. Jamal Williams.
2 more weeks.
Obviously getting
3 more weeks for him, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Getting, why am I blanking? Alvin Kamara back this week.
I was going to say.
So that's going to be a big one.
Jamal Williams eligible to return after 4 games, so that will be week 7 because of when he went on. And Deontay Johnson with the hamstring, he would be eligible to come back in week 6, but they have a bye.
Yes,
so he too comes back in week 7.
All right, we are going to dive into the waiver wire after this. But